So good afternoon, good morning, dear students. So we will be discussing a new topic, biotechnology and its applications. Okay. So in the previous classes, we were discussing about the various aspects of biotechnology, principles and processes. If you remember the previous class, we had discussed about how to make the host cell uh, so competent to take up the recombinant DNA. So we discussed about the other methods also, like biolistic method, microinjection, then disarmed pathogen, so which are used as a way of transferring the recombinant DNA into the uh, organism host. And we also discussed about large scale production using the bioreactors. Okay, so those we had discussed in the previous class. Now we will be focusing on the application aspects of biotechnology. Okay, so biotechnology and its applications. So where are they applied? So biopharmaceuticals. I told you about Biocon in Bangalore. So Kiran Mazumdar, who is running the company. So the lot of medical products, medicinal products like insulin and other things are obtained by this using the knowledge of biotechnology. So the applications in different fields are in biopharmaceutical. Pharmaceutical companies are where they manufacture uh, the medicines. Okay, therapeutics, diagnostics like early detection of cancer, detection of the viral diseases, bacterial diseases. So for production of diagnostic kits also, the knowledge of biotechnology is required. So that is also an application aspect of it. Obtaining genetically modified crops. See, genetically modified crops with fortification, like there is a golden yellow rice. So the rice along with this vitamin A, so they are going to overcome the vitamin A deficiency, which is seen in most of the third world countries. So the golden yellow rice is a fortified food product with vitamin A. So that was done with the purpose of overcoming the vitamin A deficiency in many of the Asian countries, especially the third world countries. Similarly, the BT cotton. So these are all genetically modified crops I'm talking about. So the BT cotton is where the pests that affect the cotton plants are killed by this BT cotton plant. So this genetically modified crop, that is BT cotton plant, which we'll be discussing in detail later on. Then processed food also has they utilize the knowledge of biotechnology, bioremediation, waste treatment, and energy production. So the biotechnology is applied in these areas like biopharmaceuticals, therapeutics, diagnostic kits to make them. Therapeutics is therapy, like you have this gene therapy and other things. Genetically modified organisms or crops. Processed food also we utilize this knowledge of biotechnology. Bioremediation, so the pollutants are removed. The waste treatment and energy production. So the knowledge of biotechnology is utilized and they are applied in these areas. So the three critical research areas of biotechnology are, so provide best catalyst in the form of improved organism using a microbe or pure enzyme. So you are going to provide the three critical research areas of biotechnology. The first one is you are going to provide the best catalyst, and that catalyst can be either in the form of improved organism, like recombinant DNA might be there in that organism, usually a microbe, or it can be just pure enzyme. So how are you going to provide the best catalyst? Either in the form of improved organism, that is a microbe, or it can be pure enzyme. That is how you can provide the best catalyst. That is the first critical research area. Second area is create optimal conditions through engineering for a catalyst to act. So you are going to create an optimal, the best conditions through engineering. genetic engineering for a catalyst to act. That catalyst can be an pure enzyme, or it can be a improved organism, or you can also call it as transformed organism. Okay, so create optimal condition. That is the second area for the genetic engineering, through genetic engineering for a catalyst to act. Third area of biotechnology, research area of biotechnology is downstream processing technology to purify the protein or organic compound. In the previous class also I had discussed about this downstream processing. So the downstream processing technology is the third area. So using which we purify the protein or organic compound. So you have to remember the applications of biotechnology. It involves three critical research areas of biotechnology. The first critical research area is to provide the best catalyst in the form of modified organism, which is usually a microorganism, or it can be a pure enzyme. So you are going to provide the best catalyst. Second one is create a very good optimal conditions through genetic engineering for the catalyst to act. Third one is downstream processing technology, utilizing which we purify the protein or organic compound obtained. So these are the three critical research area of biotechnology. So first aspect that we'll study is the application in agriculture. What are the application of biotechnology in agriculture? So the applications in agriculture, three options for increasing food production. Okay, so the three options for increasing food production are agrochemical based agriculture, organic agriculture, genetically engineered crop based agriculture. So if we have to improve the increase the food production, see earlier days the food production should increase a lot, because with the increasing population the need for food is more. So the three options for increasing food production are the agrochemical based agriculture, okay, then the organic agriculture. Third one is genetically engineered crop based agriculture. So genetically engineered crop based agriculture. So the genetically modified organisms are the plants, bacteria, fungi, and animals whose genes are altered by manipulation. So these are things that we do. So genetically modified organisms. So using this genetic engineering crop based agriculture, so we are obtaining the genetically modified organisms like the plants, bacteria, fungi, and animals, so whose genes are altered by manipulation. You know that recombinant DNA technology where there is manipulation of genes. A desired gene is introduced into the uh, plasmid, and that recombined DNA is introduced into the host cell. So we have manipulated the genes to obtain the desired products. So genetically modified organisms are the plants, bacteria, fungi, and animals whose genes are altered by manipulation. And this manipulation is done by recombinant DNA technology or genetic engineering. So the three options for increasing food production is agrochemical based agriculture, where you spray the chemicals and increase the yield. Second one is organic agriculture. That is also another way of increasing food production. Third method is by going for genetically engineered crop based agriculture, you can increase the food production. So genetically modified organism, GMO, implies genetically modified organism. What are the advantages of genetic modification in plants? It makes crops more tolerant to abiotic stresses. Abiotic stresses are a cold, drought, bargala. Drought ಅಂದರೆ where the water availability itself is not there, or salt, heat, etc. So it makes the genetic modification in plants. It makes the crops more tolerant to abiotic stresses like cold, drought, salt, heat, etc. These are all abiotic uh, stresses. Okay. Then pest resistant crops, they are going to reduce the use of chemical pesticides. So the pest resistant crops, we are going to reduce the use of chemical pesticides. Like pest resistant crops, you have this bt cotton. You need not have to spray any insecticide there. Reason is they already have a toxic substance within their gene. Whenever this insects feed on them, they are going to die. So you need not have to spray any chemical pesticides. So similar to bt cotton, you can obtain pest resistant crops, which makes the use of chemical pesticides lesser. And this genetic modification in plants, it also helps to reduce post harvest losses, the losses that happens after harvesting the fruits or vegetables, that can be reduced by in the genetic modified plants. It increases the efficiency of mineral usage by the plants, like it prevents early exhaustion of soil fertility. So the genetically modified plants, we can modify them to increase the efficiency of mineral usage. They don't absorb over nutrients from the soil. So and they use this efficiently. So the genetically modified plants increase the efficiency of mineral usage by plants, and it prevents the early exhaustion of soil fertility. So now this genetically modified plants, it enhances nutritional value of food. Example, golden rice. Vitamin A is enriched rice. So the vitamin A, it is there in this golden yellow rice. Okay. GM or genetic modification used to create tailor-made plants to supply alternative resources. So tailor-made plants, like I want to have a plant which is rich in starch, which produces more of fuel, or chemicals that are required, the medicinal chemicals like alkaloids, which are used in pharmaceuticals. So those sort of requirements can be enhanced by this genetically modified plant. So you can tailor make the plants to supply the alternative resources like starches, fuel, pharmaceuticals, etc. to the industries. So genetic modification is used to create uh, tailor-made plans to supply alternative resources. Like you want to have excess starch in a plant, you can manipulate the genes so that the plants start producing more starch or fuel. Like there are some plants which we use it for biofuels, isn't it? So you can obtain more of such biofuels from such plants. There are some plants which are used for the chemicals which act as medicines like alkaloids, or it can be reserpine, the serpentine. So they are all the different types of chemicals that are there, which are medicinal products. So we can enhance that in genetic modified plants so that it benefits the industries. So these are all the advantages of genetically modifying the plants. So the genetic modification in plants. So let us first discuss about the pest resistant plants. So pest resistant plants act as a biopesticide, biological pesticide. You are not spraying any chemicals like DDT or BHC, benzahexachloride. You are not going to spray any of the chemicals. Rather, the plants themselves produce the poisonous substances, toxic substances, and they act as biopesticide. So using this biotechnology, we can produce pest resistant plants which act as biopesticide, and it reduces the need for insecticides. Insecticides are chemicals which are sprayed to kill the insects. Example for this pest resistant plants is bt cotton. There is also bt corn, rice, tomato, potato, soya bean, etc. So all these are uh, pest resistant plants. Bt cotton, bt corn, bt brinjal is also there, rice, tomato, potato, soya bean. So there are pest resistant plants of these varieties. Okay, and it reduces the need for insecticides. Now we will be taking an example to study this pest resistant plants, that is bt cotton, where bt stands for Bacillus thuringiensis. So So BT stands for Bacillus thuringiensis. So some strains of Bacillus thuringiensis have proteins that kill insects. So this Bacillus thuringiensis, some of the strains of this bacteria, they have proteins that can kill insects like coleopteran insects like beetles. Okay, so lepidopterans like tobacco budworm, armyworm, and dipterans, the flies or mosquitoes. So these are coleopterans, lepidopterans, dipterans. They are all different type of orders of insect class insecta. Okay, so the coleopterans are beetles, lepidopterans like tobacco budworm, armyworm. So for NEET, they might ask you such questions. So you should be remembering the examples. Dipterans like flies and mosquitoes. Okay, so coleopterans, only one variety, beetles comes under coleopterans. Lepidopterans, tobacco budworm, armyworm, and dipterans, you have the flies, mosquitoes. So these are some strains of Bacillus thuringiensis. They have proteins which can kill insects like coleopterans, lepidopterans, and dipterans. So Bacillus thuringiensis, what they form is a toxic insecticidal protein. We call it as Bt toxin. So they have that capability to form a toxic insecticidal protein, Bt toxin. So crystal during a particular phase of their growth. So during a particular phase of their growth, they are able to produce this Bt toxin crystal. Okay, it does not kill the bacillus. See, this Bt toxin does not kill the bacillus as it is in an inactive protoxin. So as it is in an inactive form, but when this protoxin or this Bt toxin, which is in inactive form, enters the gut of the insect, they are activated and the toxic substances destroy the insect. They kill the insect. So they are in their bacillus when they produce this Bt toxin, they are in their inactive protoxin form. When an insect they are going to ingest as swallows the inactive toxin, it is converted into active toxin. So the ingestion of this toxin, Bt toxin crystal, so and that is going to get activated in the due to the alkaline pH of the gut. Gut is the alimentary canal ಅಲ್ಲಿ alkaline pH ಇರುತ್ತೆ, basic pH ಇರುತ್ತೆ. So which converts this inactive toxin into active toxin. So the inactive Bt toxin is converted into active toxin due to the alkaline pH of the gut, and this solubilizes the crystal. Okay. Now the toxin binds to the surface of, you can see that toxin binds to the surface of the midgut epithelial cells. The toxin is going to bind to the midgut epithelial cells of the midgut. Okay. And it creates pores. It creates pores or openings. So they create pores or opening in the gut, which causes cell swelling. So cells will start ಊದ್ಕೊಳತ್ತೆ, cell swelling, ತೂತ್ ಮಾಡತ್ತೆ ಗಟ್ನ. Okay, it creates pores, it causes cell swelling and lysis and death of the insect, and that causes the death of the insect. So the toxin binds to the surface of the epithelial cells of the uh, midgut, midgut epithelial cells, and it creates pores, which causes swelling of the cells, and lysis, and finally death of the insect. So that is what is going to happen by this cotton, the Bt toxin that is obtained from the Bacillus thuringiensis. Some of the strains they have that capability to produce this in inactive form, but when this Bt toxin is ingested by the insect, uh, they are going to be activated because of the presence of the alkaline pH in the gut, and they solubilize the crystal. So the toxin now binds to the surface of the midgut epithelial cells and they create pores. This causes swelling of the cell and lysis, and finally the death of the insect takes place. So Bt cotton now will try to understand what are those genes. So that is the property of Bacillus thuringiensis. What I discuss now is the property of Bacillus thuringiensis. So Bt toxin genes. Okay, the Bacillus thuringiensis toxin genes were isolated from Bacillus thuringiensis, the bacteria, Bacillus thuringiensis, and it was incorporated into crop plants such as cotton. So they were transferred and introduced into the crop plant, that is cotton. So most Bt toxins are insect group specific. So I told you that there is Lepidoptera, then Diptera. So the most Bt toxins, they are all insect group specific. The toxin is coded by a gene. See, the Bt toxin is obtained from a gene, CRY1AC, named as CRY. Okay, cry1ac, so which is named as cry. The examples, the proteins encoded by cry1ac and cry2ab, they control the cotton bollworms. The cry1abs, they control the corn borers. Okay, so the proteins that are produced by the genes cry1ac and cry2ab, they control the cotton bollworms. So in bt cotton they have this cry1ac and cry2ab. That of Cry1AB, only Cry1AB, it controls corn borer. So you have to remember about this. So the Bacillus thuringiensis toxin genes were isolated from Bacillus thuringiensis bacteria, and they were introduced into crop plants such as cotton. Okay, so most of the Bt toxins that are produced are insect group specific. I told you there are different types of insect uh, groups like coleopterans, lepidopterans, and dipterans. So coleopterans, lepidopterans, dipterans, they are the different type of insect group. So the toxic, they are most Bt toxins are insect group specific. The toxin is coded by a gene Cry1ABC, Cry1AC, which is also called as Cry. Okay, the proteins encoded by the genes are the genes are Cry1AC and Cry2AB. They control the cotton bollworm. So the toxins obtained from this Cry1AC and Cry2AB, they are going to control the cotton bollworm. And the protein obtained only from Cry1AB, they control this corn borer insects. Okay, so the application in the agriculture. So the next one is pest resistant plants. One we discussed about BT cotton. The next pest resistant plant is nematode resistance in tobacco plants.
Excuse me, sir.
Okay. Yes.
Sir, if we eat BT corn, what happens, sir?
BT corn, I don't think it would be toxic because they would have produced in such a way that it doesn't harm the human beings. But many of them, they don't want to go for the genetically modified crops. That is the reason even when BT brinjal, they wanted to introduce it in India, there was huge protest and the government cancelled this BT brinjal in India. Okay. So most of the companies which are producing this genetically modified crops, they are doing it for profit purpose. Okay, even this bt cotton, many of the farmers, they are not happy with it because the farmers have to purchase the seeds from every season. ಈಗ ರೈತರು ಬಿತ್ತನೆ ಮಾಡಿಬಿಟ್ಟು ಆ ಫಸಲ್ ಬಂದಾದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಆ ಫಸಲಿಂದನೇ ಒಳ್ಳೆ ಬೀಜಗಳನ್ನ ಆಯ್ಕೆ ಮಾಡಿಕೊಂಡು ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಸೀಸನ್ಗೆ ಅದನ್ನೇ ಬಿತ್ತನೆ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಬಟ್ ಇಲ್ಲೇನಾಗುತ್ತದೆ ಬಿ ಟಿ ಕಾಟನ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ದೇ ಆರ್ ಸ್ಟೆರೈಲ್ ಸೀಡ್ಸ್, ನೀವು ಮತ್ತೆ ಉಪಯೋಗ ಮಾಡೋಕ್ಕಾಗಲ್ಲ. ಸೊ ಪ್ರತಿ ಸಲ ನೀವು ಹತ್ತಿ ಗಿಡಗಳನ್ನ ಬೆಳೆಸ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹೋಗಿ ಪರ್ಚೇಸ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾಗತ್ತೆ ಬಿ ಟಿ ಕಾಟನ್. ಸೊ ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಒನ್ ಆಫ್ ದಿ ಡ್ರಾಬ್ಯಾಕ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ದಿಸ್, ಅಂಡ್ farmers have to spend money. That is one thing. Second aspect of it, the wild varieties of cotton now, pollen grains of this bt cotton, if it falls to them, they change their genotype. So the wild variety of crops can get affected. So these are all some of the reasons. And as you said, the long term effect of this on especially the food plants, bt food plants, the genetically modified food plants, long term effect, what it is going to be, we do not know. It is not time tested food. Okay, so many of them, that is the reason they don't go for this genetically modified food. So in the foreign countries, such genetically modified food, they mark it as GMO. ಬಟ್ ನಮ್ಮ ಕಂಟ್ರಿಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಎಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ? ಬೀದಿಲಿ ಸೇಲ್ ಮಾಡೋರು ಜೆನೆಟಿಕಲಿ ಮಾಡಿಫೈಡ್ ಬದನೆಕಾಯಿ ಅಂತ ಮಾರ್ತಾರ? They won't do that. We are not aware. So third world countries, this awareness is not there, ignorance is there. So it might lead to the exploitation. That is the reason. So we have to be very careful when we are using this genetically modified plants. At the same time, to overcome the food crisis in the near future, we require genetically modified plants. But if they are made by governments, governments don't look into profit. But in Monsanto company ಇವೆಲ್ಲ ಇದೆ ನೋಡಿ, they are all looking for profit. They want the farmers to come to them to purchase seeds every season. So what they do is they make these seeds sterile, especially bt cotton, what I'm talking about. Okay, so that is the reason even bt brinjal, people were not confident about it. They did not want the government to introduce this bt brinjal in India. Okay, initially the government was planning to introduce, then they withdrew it. So this you have to understand about. Okay, but at the same time we should not run away from technology also. If the governments are going to use this technology, they will always think about the benefits to the people. Okay, so it won't be profit motive. So as a result of it, people, the farmers can get benefited and other things. But again, as I told, this is not a time tested food product. So long term, what will its effect be on human beings, we do not know. So you were asking like this inactive uh, toxins, if it enters into human beings. See, cotton we are not going to eat, but in case of other food products, maybe what effect it has and its long term effect, we have to study. Okay, that we are not having it. But at experimental level, they would have seen to it that it doesn't harm, or this is not harmful to human beings. So only the long term of utilizing these plants, we will be knowing its harmful effects. Okay, but anyway, the future, we have to be dependent upon this genetically modified plants because the land area is getting reduced. So we want to produce maximum food in minimum area. So that might also happen. So if we properly use it, the knowledge of this biotechnology, we can obtain very good plants, and we can have this for the benefit of human welfare. Okay, so that's a good question. Anyway, so let us get back to the doubt clarify ಆಯ್ತೇನಪ್ಪ ಇನ್ನೇನಾದ್ರೂ ಇದೆಯಾ?
No, sir.
Okay, so let us get back into the next pest resistant plant, a nematode resistant in tobacco plants. Nematodes like Meliodine incognita, they are microscopic. They enter into the roots of tobacco plants. Tobacco plants leaves are going to be the what do you call it, as commercially they are the most important part. ಹೊಗೆ ಸೊಪ್ಪು ಇವೆಲ್ಲ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಲ್ಲ, ಎಲೆಗಳವೆಲ್ಲ, the tobacco itself is obtained from the leaves. So now this plants, if the roots are infested with this nematode, Meliodine incognita, which is microscopic nematode worms. So they infect the roots of tobacco plants, causing a reduction in the yield of tobacco. The leaves would all be smaller. The yield of the plant will be lesser because the roots are affected by this nematode, Meliodine incognita. The scientific name of this nematode is Meliodine incognita. So how can we prevent this Meliodine incognita from infesting this roots of tobacco plant? So we can prevent it by RNA interference. RNAi ಅನ್ನೋದು RNA interference strategy. ಸೊ ನಿಮಗೆ ಸೆಂಟ್ರಲ್ ಡಾಗ್ಮಾ ಆಫ್ ಮಾಲಿಕ್ಯುಲರ್ ಬಯಾಲಜಿ ಗೊತ್ತಿದ್ರೆ, ಡಿ ಎನ್ ಎ ಜೀನ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, ಜೀನಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು ಮೆಸೇಜ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ದಟ್ ಇಸ್ ದೇ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಟು ಸಿಂಥಸೈಸ್ ಹ್ಯೂಮನ್ ಇನ್ಸುಲಿನ್ ಅನ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ, ಆ ಜೀನು ಡಿ ಎನ್ ಎ ನಲ್ಲಿ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಈ ಇನ್ಸುಲಿನ್ ಸಿಂಥಸೈಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕನ್ನೋ ಮೆಸೇಜ್ ಹೇಗೆ ನಮ್ಮ ದೇಹಕ್ಕೆ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗುತ್ತೆ? ಡಿ ಎನ್ ಎ ವಿಲ್ ಬಿ ಅಂಡರ್ಗೋಯಿಂಗ್ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಕ್ರಿಪ್ಷನ್ ಟು ಫಾರ್ಮ್ ಎಂ ಆರ್ ಎನ್ ಎ, ಮೆಸೆಂಜರ್ ಆರ್ ಎನ್ ಎ. ಆ ಡಿ ಎನ್ ಎ ನಲ್ಲಿ ಇರೋ ಮೆಸೇಜ್ನ ಮೆಸೆಂಜರ್ ಎಂ ಆರ್ ಎನ್ ಎ ನಲ್ಲಿ ಕೋಡಾನ್ಸ್ ಆಗಿರತ್ತೆ. ಇವನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ ಕೋಡಾನ್ಸ್ ಓದಿರ್ತೀರಾ ನೀವು, ಇನಿಷಿಯೇಟರ್ ಕೋಡಾನ್, ಟರ್ಮಿನೇಟರ್ ಕೋಡಾನ್ಸ್, ಟ್ರಿಪ್ಲೆಟ್ ಕೋಡಾನ್ಸ್ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಓದಿರ್ತೀರಾ. ಈಚ್ ಕೋಡಾನ್ ವಿಲ್ ಸಿಂಥಸೈಸ್ ಅನ್ ಅಮೈನೋ ಆಸಿಡ್. ಸೊ ಕೋಡಾನ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಆ ಮೆಸೇಜ್ನ ಎಂ ಆರ್ ಎನ್ ಎಗೆ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಕ್ರಿಪ್ಷನ್ ಮೂಲಕ ಕಳಿಸುತ್ತೆ. A coded message our body cannot understand. Our body can understand the message only in the form of hormones or enzyme. We call it as functional proteins. Most of the hormones are proteinaceous in nature. Enzymes are also proteinaceous in nature. So ಈ ಫಂಕ್ಷನಲ್ ಪ್ರೋಟೀನ್ ಆಗಿ ಕನ್ವರ್ಟ್ ಆಗಬೇಕು. ಸೊ ಇದು ಅನುವಾದ ಆಗಬೇಕು. ಈ ಮೆಸೇಜ್ ಇದೆಯಲ್ಲ mRNA ನಲ್ಲಿ ಕೋಡಾನ್ ಫಾರ್ಮ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇದೆ. ಅದು ಅನುವಾದ ಆಗಬೇಕು. That is we call it as translation. This message is translated into a specific set of amino acid which forms protein. Protein is a polymer of amino acids, different combination of amino acid. So they form the functional proteins. It can be insulin. So the human insulin gene idre the functional protein is insulin hormone. ಸೊ ಈ ರೀತಿ ಆ ಮೆಸೇಜ್ ಡಿ ಎನ್ ಎ ನಲ್ಲಿರೋದು ಡೆಪಿಕ್ಟ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, ಎರಡು ಪ್ರೋಸೆಸ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ದಿಸ್ ವಿ ಕಾಲ್ ಇಟ್ ಅ ಸೆಂಟ್ರಲ್ ಡಾಗ್ಮಾ ಆಫ್ ಮಾಲಿಕ್ಯುಲರ್ ಬಯಾಲಜಿ. ಡಿ ಎನ್ ಎ undergoes transcription to produce mRNA. mRNA undergoes translation or protein synthesis to produce the functional proteins, which can be hormones or enzymes. ಸೊ ಇವೆರಡು ಇದೆ ಈಗ. ಸೊ ಈಗ ಆರ್ ಎನ್ ಎ ಇಂಟರ್ಫಿಯರೆನ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಇಟ್ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಬಿ ಪ್ರಿವೆಂಟೆಡ್ ಬೈ ಆರ್ ಎನ್ ಎ ಇಂಟರ್ಫಿಯರೆನ್ಸ್ ವೇರ್ ದಿ ಎಮ್ ಆರ್ ಎನ್ ಎ ಇಸ್ ಸೈಲೆನ್ಸ್ಡ್. ಆ ಎಮ್ ಆರ್ ಎನ್ ಎ ಸೈಲೆನ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಲೇಷನ್ ಆಗಲ್ಲ. ಸೊ ಈ ಮೆಕ್ಯಾನಿಸಮ್ ಇಟ್ಕೊಳ್ತೀವಿ, ಆರ್ ಎನ್ ಎ ಇಂಟರ್ಫಿಯರೆನ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ. ಈ ಟೆಕ್ನಿಕ್ನ ಆರ್ ಎನ್ ಎ ಇಂಟರ್ಫಿಯರೆನ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ. ಇಟ್ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಬಿ ಪ್ರಿವೆಂಟೆಡ್ ಬೈ ಆರ್ ಎನ್ ಎ ಇಂಟರ್ಫಿಯರೆನ್ಸ್ ಸ್ಟ್ರಾಟಜಿ. ಆರ್ ಎನ್ ಎ ಇಂಟರ್ಫಿಯರೆನ್ಸ್ is a method of cellular defense which is present in all the eukaryotic organism. So it prevents the translation of a specific mRNA. ಆ mRNA ನ ಸೈಲೆನ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡಿಬಿಟ್ರೆ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಲೇಷನ್ ಆಗಲ್ಲ. ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಲೇಷನ್ ಆಗದೆ ಇದ್ರೆ then it is benefited. So how do we silence this specific mRNA due to a complementary double-stranded molecule, RNA molecule? Usually RNA molecules are the single-stranded, but here we are using this. It prevents translation of a specific mRNA due to a complementary double-stranded RNA molecule. So that prevents this expression of mRNA. Okay, or the translation of mRNA is prevented by a complementary double-stranded RNA molecule. So how we obtain, let us understand about it. See the nematode infected roots of tobacco plant. This is how they look. So the source of complementary RNA is from an infection by RNA virus or mobile genetic elements transposons that replicate via an RNA intermediate. So what is the source of the complementary RNA? It is from an infection by an RNA virus or mobile genetic elements. We call it as transposons. Okay, that replicate via an RNA intermediate. Okay, using agrobacterium vectors. So you know the agrobacterium vectors, that is DI plasmids, nematode specific genes, DNA is introduced into the host plant. So the host plant is the tobacco plant. So nematode, so using this DI plasmid, we have introduced nematode specific genes, DNA. So our recombinant DI plasmid we introduce into the host plant. The host plant here is tobacco plant. Now this host plant, it produces sense and antisense RNA. So it produces this host plant's DNA produces sense and antisense RNA in the host cells. So these RNAs are complementary to each other, sense and antisense. RNAs are complementary to each other. So they, because they are complementary to each other, they form a double-stranded RNA. And this double-stranded RNA, it initiates RNA interference and silences the specific mRNA of nematode. So the nematode, when their mRNA is silenced, the parasite cannot survive. So the nematode parasite cannot survive in the transgenic host by expressing the specific interfering RNA. So thus the parasite, nematode parasite cannot survive in tobacco plant that is in a transgenic host which expresses specific interfering RNA. So they produce this double-stranded RNA, so which initiates RNA interference in the nematode and silences the RNA of mRNA of nematode. Once they do not undergo translation, this parasite cannot survive in the transgenic host. So a foreign gene has been introduced here, that is the agrobacterium vector TI plasmid with a nematode specific genes, DNAs are introduced. That is the foreign DNA in the TI plasmid, and they are introduced into the host plant, that is the tobacco plant. So since they are present in the this plant with a foreign gene, we call it as transgenic plant. Since they have this nematode specific DNA, they produce sense and antisense strand of RNA in the host cells, and they become double stranded. So these RNA sense and antisense strands are complementary, okay, and they become double stranded. This double stranded RNA, it initiates RNA interference and silences the specific mRNA of nematode. So the nematode cannot survive in a transgenic host, nematode resistant tobacco plant, which has that uh, nematode specific genes DNA. Okay, as a result of it, the expressing specific interfering RNA, it is going to destroy the nematode parasite. So what is the nematode? Meliodine incognita. How is it killed in the tobacco plant? By this RNA interference technique. What is RNA interference technique? So the agrobacterium vectors like TI plasmid we take, and into that we are going to introduce this specific DNAs, nematode specific DNAs is introduced into the TI plasmid. This TI plasmid is in fact introduced into the host plant, that is tobacco plant. So the host plant, tobacco plant, produces both sense and antisense RNA, which are complementary to each other. Since they are complementary to each other, they become double-stranded RNA. This double-stranded RNA initiates RNA interference, and they are going to silence the specific mRNA of nematode. Once their mRNAs are silenced, the nematodes cannot survive in this transgenic, that is the nematode resistant tobacco plant, which is a transgenic plant. They cannot survive there. So because of the specific interfering RNA, double stranded RNA is the interfering RNA which silences the mRNA. So understand about this nematode resistant in tobacco plants. ಅರ್ಥ ಆಯ್ತೇನಪ್ಪ? Dear students, did you understand this?
Yes,
So,
sir.
okay. So next, what we are going to do is we are going to study the applications in medicine. So what are the application in medicine? See, nowadays edible vaccines ಇದೆ. ಈಗ ವ್ಯಾಕ್ಸಿನೇಷನ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ನಿಮಗೆ ಒಂದು ಸ್ಕಾರ್ ಆಗತ್ತೆ, ಮತ್ತೆ ಆಫ್ಟರ್ ಎಫೆಕ್ಟ್ಸ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಇಫ್ ಯು ಈಟ್ ಸರ್ಟನ್ ಫ್ರೂಟ್ಸ್, ದಿ ವ್ಯಾಕ್ಸಿನ್ಸ್ ವುಡ್ ಬಿ ಗೆಟಿಂಗ್ ಇನ್ ಟು ಯುವರ್ ಬಾಡಿ. ಆ ಎಡಿಬಲ್ ವ್ಯಾಕ್ಸಿನ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ, ಬಟ್ ಯು ಡೋಂಟ್ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಇಟ್ ಫಾರ್ ಯುವರ್ ಸ್ಟಡಿ, ಬಟ್ ಇವೆಲ್ಲ ಇದೆ. ಆರ್ಟಿಫಿಷಿಯಲ್ ಬ್ಲಡ್ ದೇ ಆರ್ ಡೂಯಿಂಗ್ ಇಟ್. ಸೊ ದೆನ್ ದೇರ್ ಇಸ್ ಸ್ಟೆಮ್ ಸೆಲ್ ಕಲ್ಚರ್. ನಾಳೆ ಆರ್ಗನ್ಸ್ನೇ ಬೆಳೆಸ್ತಾರೆ ಲ್ಯಾಬ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ, and they can be introduced into the human being. ಈಗ already the umbilical cord, so the stem cells in the umbilical cord, they are being preserved. Okay, so there are many people who get their umbilical cord preserved because they have stem cells. ನಾಳೆ ಯಾವುದೋ ಒಂದು ಆರ್ಗನ್ ಮ್ಯಾಲ್ಫಂಕ್ಷನ್ ಆಯಿತು, so this stem cells can be developed to form a certain tissue or an organ, and that can be used for transplantation. So there are a lot of such things that are happening. Even today, that technology is available in maternity hospitals. You come across this where they preserve the stem cells in the umbilical cord. Okay, so then there is gene therapy. ಈಗ ನಮ್ಗೆ ಏನೇ ಒಂದು ಕಾಯಿಲೆ ಬಂದ್ರೆ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ, ಡಾಕ್ಟರ್ನ ಹೋಗಿ ಅಪ್ರೋಚ್ ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ ದೇ ಗಿವ್ ಕೆಮಿಕಲ್ ಸಬ್ಸ್ಟೆನ್ಸಸ್ ಅಲ್ವಾ, ಟ್ಯಾಬ್ಲೆಟ್ಸ್ ಮೂಲಕನೋ ಅಥವಾ ಸಿರಪ್ ಮೂಲಕನೋ ಕೊಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಇದನ್ನ ಕೀಮೋಥೆರಪಿ ಅಂತೀವಿ. ಬಟ್ ಜೀನ್ ಥೆರಪಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಈಗ ಯಾವುದೋ ಜೆನೆಟಿಕ್ ಡಿಸಾರ್ಡರ್ ಇದ್ರೆ, ಸೊ ಲೈಕ್ ದಿ SCID, ಸಿವಿಯರ್ ಕಂಬೈನ್ಡ್ ಇಮ್ಯುನೋಡಿಫಿಷಿಯನ್ಸಿ ಡಿಸಾರ್ಡರ್, ಒಂದು ಡಿಫೆಕ್ಟ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ ಆ ಜೀನಲ್ಲಿ. ಆ ಡಿಫೆಕ್ಟಿವ್ ಜೀನ್ನ ವಿ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ರಿಪ್ಲೇಸ್ ಇಟ್ ಬೈ ನಾರ್ಮಲ್ ಜೀನ್. ಸೊ ವಿ ಕಾಲ್ ದಿಸ್ ಆಸ್ gene therapy. So it is a permanent treatment or cure that you can obtain from this gene therapy. So they are all different areas where you can apply biotechnology knowledge. So application of biotechnology knowledge in medicine. ಇವತ್ತು there are a lot of diagnostic kits ಅಲ್ವಾ COVID-19ಗೆ the antibody tests ಇವೆಲ್ಲ they are all again using biotechnology methods. They are obtaining this diagnostic kits for even this COVID-19 for identifying this coronavirus. Okay, so recombinant DNA technology. So applications in medicine, rDNA technology, they help for the mass production of safe and more effective therapeutic drugs. ಥೆರಪಿ ಕೊಡುವಂಥ ಡ್ರಗ್ಸ್. ಈಗ ಇನ್ಸುಲಿನ್ ಮುಂಚೆ ಎಲ್ಲ ನಾವು ಈ ಬಯೋಟೆಕ್ನಾಲಜಿ ರೀಕಾಮಿನೆಂಟ್ ಡಿ ಎನ್ ಎ ಟೆಕ್ನಾಲಜಿ ಗೊತ್ತಿರೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಮುಂಚೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿಲ್ಲದೆ ಇರಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡೋರು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಲಾರ್ಜ್ ನಂಬರ್ ಆಫ್ ಪ್ಯಾನ್ಕ್ರಿಯಾಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಅನಿಮಲ್ಸ್ ವೇರ್ ಕಲೆಕ್ಟೆಡ್ and from this pancreas they were extracting the insulin. So purification process was very difficult and very little amount of insulin was obtained, and these were from other animals. So the compatibility in human beings was not seen. So ಈ ತರ ಒಂದು ಡಿಸಡ್ವಾಂಟೇಜ್ ಇತ್ತು ಅರ್ಲಿಯರ್ ಮೆಥಡ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ. ಬಟ್ ನಾವು ಯೂಸಿಂಗ್ ದಿಸ್ ಬಯೋಟೆಕ್ನಾಲಜಿ they are able to obtain human insulin itself from bacteria. They introduce this humulin gene into the recombinant DNA. Okay, and when they are introduced into the host cell, they start producing human insulin. So now this human insulin is compatible to human body. So where there is no need for slaughtering large number of animals to get very small amount of insulin. So we can produce in large quantity the insulin in bioreactors. So today we are able to do that because of the recombinant DNA technology, which is an important aspect of genetic engineering in biotechnology. So recombinant DNA technology helps for the mass production of safe and more effective therapeutic drugs. It can be antibiotics, it can be the vaccines, it can be the insulin or enzymes. They can all be produced in large amount using this knowledge of biotechnology. So the recombinant DNA technology, it helps for the mass production of safe and effective therapeutic drugs. The products from non-human sources, so like I told you, from pig, the sheep, they were using the pancreas of these animals for extracting human insulin, for extracting insulin. So these were not immunological, unwanted immunological responses they were giving. So the products from non-human sources induce unwanted immunological responses like insulin from other animals. They are going to create resistance in our body. But recombinant therapeutics, but the insulin which we obtain from this recombinant DNA technology, they are do not have such problem because the human gene itself is utilized for the production of insulin. So they do not have this problems of unwanted immunological response. There won't be any such problems. There is no rejection mechanism. At present, around 30 recombinant therapeutics have been approved throughout the world. 30 recombinant therapeutics or medicines obtained from recombinant DNA technology, they have been approved throughout the world. Of this, 12 are being marketed in India. So 12 therapeutic recombinants are marketed in India. So the applications in medicine are genetically engineered insulin, gene therapy, molecular diagnosis. So the applications in medicine are applications of biotechnology in medicine are genetically engineered insulin. So obtaining human insulin through recombinant DNA technology. That is what it is. Genetically engineered insulin, gene therapy, molecular diagnosis. So you can diagnose the viral diseases. You can diagnose at very early stage the cancer. All these are possible because of the applications of biotechnology in medicine. So three important areas are genetically engineered insulin, gene therapy, molecular diagnosis. We'll study one by one. The first one is genetically engineered insulin. See, insulin is very important. Deficiency of insulin causes diabetes mellitus. So, if the secretion of insulin is less, hyposecretion, it causes diabetes mellitus, Sakre Kyle, what we call it as. So, insulin is used to manage adult onset of diabetes. So, insulin from the pancreas of animals like cattle and pigs, they cause allergy or other type of reaction to the foreign protein. So earlier days they were extracting the insulin from the pancreas of cattle and pigs, and they were causing allergy and other type of resistant reactions to this foreign protein. Now using this biotechnology, we are able to produce human insulin. So human insulin, you can also call it as humulin. Using bacteria, we are able to produce humulin. So by the uh, recombinant DNA technology. So insulin consists of two short polypeptide chains, okay, A chain and B chain that are linked by disulfide bonds. You can see that A chain, A chain and B chain, they are linked by disulfide links. They are linked by only two disulfide linkages or disulfide bridges. A chain and B chain, they are linked by disulfide bridges. So in mammals, insulin is synthesized by a as a prohormone. Okay, it needs processing to become mature and functional hormone. So that prohormone is proinsulin we synthesize using recombinant DNA technology. They'll also be having this C chain. That C chain has to be removed. So the prohormone contains an extra stretch called as C peptide, and this is removed during the maturation into insulin. So the in mammals, insulin is synthesized as a proinsulin or prohormone, which needs processing to become mature and functional hormone. So the mature insulin has two chains, A chain and B chain, which are held or linked by disulfide bridges. Okay, so in mammals, we are going to synthesize insulin is synthesized as a prohormone or proinsulin, which needs processing to become mature and functional hormone. So the prohormone contains an extra stretch of chain called as C peptide. This is removed during the maturation process into insulin. So in 1983, Eli Lilly, ಎಲ್ಲೋದ್ರಪ್ಪ ಲಿಲಿ ಅಲ್ಲ, Eli Lilly, an American company. So Eli Lilly is an American company. They prepared two DNA sequences corresponding to A and B chains of human insulin. They separately prepared two DNA sequences corresponding to A and B chains of human insulin. They were introduced in plasmids of E. coli to produce insulin chains. So chain A and B were later combined by creating disulfide bonds to form human insulin. Eli Lilly, an American company, they prepared two DNA sequences corresponding to A and B chains of human insulin. So this DNA sequences were introduced into plasmids of E. coli to produce insulin chains. Chain A and chain B were synthesized separately. Later, they were combined by creating disulfide bonds to form human insulin. This was done by an Eli Lilly, an American company. So it is gene therapy, the next part of it. So natural human insulin, human body only, they are formed as proinsulin. So this proinsulin will have an additional C peptide chain, which has to be removed during the maturation into insulin. But in the companies like Eli Lilly, an American pharmaceutical company, they prepared two DNA sequences for the A chain and B chain of human insulin. So they introduced this A chain and B chain into the plasmid of E. coli to produce insulin chains. So they obtained chain A and chain B separately, which were combined by creating disulfide bonds. And this combined form, they form the human insulin. So the second application in medicine is gene therapy. Gene therapy, it is a method to correct a gene defect in a child or an embryo. So it is a process in which the defective gene is replaced by a normal gene. Here, the genes are inserted into a person's cells and tissues to treat a hereditary disease. It compensates for the non functional gene. So, gene therapy is a method to correct a gene defect in a child or an embryo. So, the genes are inserted into a person's cells and tissues to treat a hereditary disease. It compensates for the non functional gene. So, gene therapy is the replacement of defective gene by a normal gene in child or embryo. So the genes are inserted into the cells or tissues to treat a hereditary disease, and it compensates for the introduced gene compensates for the non-functional gene. So this girl Ashanti D Silva, she was the first clinical gene therapy patient. So she underwent gene therapy. So first clinical gene therapy patient was Ashanti D Silva. Okay, so the first clinical gene therapy, 1990, it was done, was given to a 4-year-old girl with ADDA deficiency. ADDA ಅಂದ್ರೆ adenosine deaminase, it's an enzyme. Adenosine deaminase deficiency ಇರುವಂತ ಮಗುಗೆ 4 year ಮಗುಗೆ they subjected that girl to gene therapy. Okay, it is caused. Why is this adenosine deaminase deficiency caused? Due to the deletion of the gene for ADDA. So the ADDA gene is deleted. So which is required for immune system to function. ADDA gene is required for immune system to function. If they don't have this adenosine deaminase gene, they suffer from severe combined immunodeficiency. So the enzyme for immune system is absent. So their immunity doesn't, there is a deficiency of their immune function. That is why the disease is called as SCID, severe combined immunodeficiency disorder. So the treatment by bone marrow transplantation or enzyme replacement therapy is not completely curative. So earlier to this gene therapy, they were utilizing this bone marrow transplantation or the enzyme replacement therapy. So injection of ADA, so which was not completely curative. So, but gene therapy was completely curative. Okay, so why is this ADA deficiency caused? Due to the deletion of the gene.
So
Yes,
bone marrow
Vishnuvardhan.
ಅಂದ್ರೆ bone marrow ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನ್ ಸರ್?
Huh? ಬೋನ್ ಮ್ಯಾರೋ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಬೋನ್ ಮಧ್ಯದ್ರಲ್ಲಿ ಇರತ್ ನೋಡಪ್ಪ.
Yes.
ನೀವು ಯು ಆರ್ ವೆಜಿಟೇರಿಯನ್.
No sir, ನಾನ್ ವೆಜಿಟೇರಿಯನ್ ಆಗ್ತದೆ.
ಈ ಬೋನ್ ಮಧ್ಯದ್ರಲ್ಲಿ ಆ ರೆಡ್ ಕಲರ್ ಎಸ್ಪೆಷಲಿ ಮಟನ್ ಲೆಗ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲೆಲ್ಲ ಇರತ್ ನೋಡು,
ಹಾ ಸರ್, ಬ್ಲಡ್
ಅದು
ಕ್ರಿಯೇಟ್
ಬೋನ್ ಮ್ಯಾರೋ. RBC WBC ಸಿಂಥಸೈಸ್ ಆಗುವಂತ ರೀಜನ್ ನ ಬೋನ್ ಮ್ಯಾರೋ ಅಂತೀವಿ. ದಟ್ ವಿಲ್ ಬಿ ಫೌಂಡ್ ಇನ್ ಬಿಟ್ವೀನ್ ದಿ ಸೆಂಟರ್ ಆಫ್ ದಿ ಬೋನ್.
ಸರ್.
ಅದನ್ನ ಬೋನ್ ಮ್ಯಾರೋ ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಂತಾರೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿಲ್ಲ ನಂಗೆ, ನಲ್ಲಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ ಅದನ್ನ, ಬಟ್ ಬೋನ್ ಮ್ಯಾರೋ ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ ಏನು ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿಲ್ಲ. Okay, so anyway, that is the bone marrow which is found at the center of the bone. They produce RBC and WBC. Bone marrow are of two types: red bone marrow and yellow bone marrow. Red bone marrow, they synthesize RBC and WBC. Yellow bone marrow, they synthesize fat cells. Okay, so ಈ ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರಲ್ ಆರ್ಗನೈಸೇಷನ್ ಇನ್ ಅನಿಮಲ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನೀವು ಓದಿರ್ಬೇಕು ಅದನ್ನ. ಸೊ ಎನಿವೇ, ಈ ಬೋನ್ ಮ್ಯಾರೋ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಪ್ಲಾಂಟೇಶನ್ ಈಗ ಬ್ಲಡ್ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ಸರ್ಗೂ ಬೋನ್ ಮ್ಯಾರೋ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. Okay, because the WBC would be produced in excess. So normal bone marrow transplant ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ so that it helps in overcoming the blood cancer. So the treatment by bone marrow transplantation or enzyme replacement therapy, direct ಆಗಿ adenosine deaminase enzyme ನ ಇಂಜೆಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡೋದು. Okay, so but they were not permanent cure and they were not completely curative. So but gene therapy permanent cure ಸಿಗತ್ತೆ ಅವರಿಗೆ. So that is what they did, wherein they introduced this defective gene was replaced by a normal ADDA gene. So gene for ADDA deficiency, they collected lymphocytes from the patient. Okay, so what are lymphocytes? So they collected the lymphocytes from the patient's blood and grew it in a culture. ಸೊ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ತೋರಿಸಿದ್ದಾರೆ ನೋಡಿ, ದೇ collected this lymphocytes from the patient and grew it in a culture. So then they introduced the functional ಅಡ್ಡ cDNA, ಕಾಂಪ್ಲಿಮೆಂಟರಿ DNA ಅಂತೀವಿ. ಆದರೆ ರಿವರ್ಸ್ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಕ್ರಿಪ್ಷನ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನಮ್ಮ DNA ಒಪ್ಟೈನ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ಅದನ್ನ ಏನಂತೀವಿ? ಕಾಂಪ್ಲಿಮೆಂಟರಿ DNA. ಈ ಅಡ್ಡ ಜೀನಿಗೆ ಕಾಂಪ್ಲಿಮೆಂಟರಿ DNA ಒಪ್ಟೈನ್ ಮಾಡಿರ್ತಾರೆ. ದಟ್ ಮೀನ್ಸ್ ದಿಸ್ mRNA for ಅಡ್ಡ has been subjected to reverse transcription so that they obtain complementary DNA for adda gene, and they introduced into lymphocytes using a retrovirus. ಆ ವೈರಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ವೈರಸ್ ಜೆನೆಟಿಕ್ ಮೆಟೀರಿಯಲ್ ತೆಗೆದ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಈ ಅಡ್ಡ ಸಿ ಡಿ ಎನ್ ಎನ ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ಇಂಟ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡಿರ್ತಾರೆ. that was allowed to infect the lymphocytes. So they introduced this adda cDNA through the retroviral vector. Now they are returned to the patients. So e lymphocytes with this adda cDNA, which is introduced into the lymphocytes, e lymphocytes na they return it to the patient's body. So this should be periodically repeated, as the lymphocytes are not immortal, so they die frequently. So this has to be periodically repeated. That is gene therapy at the lymphocyte level. They have to be periodically repeated and they should be introduced into the uh, patient. Okay, if adda gene from marrow cells is introduced into cells at early embryonic stages, like one cell that two cell stage alle introduce ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ಅನ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ ಈ ಅಡ್ಡ gene, it could be a permanent cure. But at later stages, they should be constantly undergoing the replacement of adda cDNA lymphocytes. They should be modified lymphocytes with adda cDNA should be frequently introduced into the patient, because lymphocytes are not immortal. But if we do this gene therapy, adda gene therapy from marrow cells, that is bone marrow cells, at very early embryonic stages, that is when the embryo is two-celled or four-celled stage al ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ, it would be a permanent cure. Okay, but at later stages, frequently they have to be introduced with this modified lymphocytes with this gene therapeutic, that is adda cDNA ಇರುವಂತ lymphocytes na frequently we should introduce into the body. So permanent cure you can obtain only if this adda cDNA is introduced into the early embryonic stages. It could cause a permanent cure. Then applications in medicine, you can also come across this molecular diagnosis. Diagnosis ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಈಗ ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ಟೀರಿಯಲ್ ಡಿಸೀಸ್ ಇದೆಯಾ, ವೈರಲ್ ಡಿಸೀಸ್ ಇದೆಯಾ, ಇದನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ ನಾವು ಲ್ಯಾಬ್ ಟೆಕ್ನಿಷಿಯನ್ಸ್ ಹತ್ರ ಕಳಿಸಿದಾಗ ಸ್ಯಾಂಪಲ್, ಬ್ಲಡ್ ಸ್ಯಾಂಪಲ್ ಅಥವಾ ದಿ ಸ್ವಾಬ್ ಆಫ್ ದಿಸ್ ಫಾರ್ ಕರೋನಾ, ಇವಕ್ಕೆಲ್ಲ ಕಳಿಸ್ತಾರೆ ಲ್ಯಾಬ್ಗೆ. ಆ ಲ್ಯಾಬ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹೋದಾಗ ಒಂದು ಡಯಾಗ್ನೋಸ್ಟಿಕ್ ಕಿಟ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. So these tools required for identifying what viral disease they are affected with, what bacterial disease they have, or at what stage the cancer is, they are all done by this diagnostic kits. So the molecular diagnosis is important. So the conventional methods of diagnosis, they use serum and urine analysis, which are not suitable for early diagnosis of diseases. Very early stage ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು diagnose ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ಬೇಗ ವಾಸಿ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು, ಎಸ್ಪೆಷಲಿ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ಸರ್ ಓನ್ಲಿ ಟ್ರೀಟ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಅಟ್ ದಿ ಅರ್ಲಿ ಸ್ಟೇಜ್. ಓಕೆ, ಸ್ಟೇಜ್ 3 ಸ್ಟೇಜ್ 4 ಎಲ್ಲ ಹೋದಾಗ ತುಂಬಾ ಕಷ್ಟ. ಸೊ ದಿ ಕನ್ವೆನ್ಷನಲ್ ಮೆಥಡ್ಸ್ ಇಸ್ ಸೆರಮ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಯೂರಿನ್ ಅನಾಲಿಸಿಸ್. ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಅರ್ಲಿ ಸ್ಟೇಜ್ ಡಿಟೆಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡೋಕ್ಕಾಗಲ್ಲ, ಬಟ್ ದೇ ಆರ್ ನಾಟ್ ಸೂಟಬಲ್ ಫಾರ್ ಅರ್ಲಿ ಡಯಾಗ್ನೋಸಿಸ್ ಆಫ್ disease. But early diagnosis of diseases, it is possible by techniques like recombinant DNA technology, PCR, polymerase chain reaction, and enzyme linked immunosorbent assay, ELISA. So using this, we can diagnose the early stage of the diseases. We can diagnose by using rDNA technology, polymerase chain reaction, and ELISA. So ಈ polymerase chain reaction ಅಲ್ಲಿ we know already 3 steps that are there. Okay, denaturation, annealing, and extension. So ಇವೆಲ್ಲ ನಾವು ಆಲ್ರೆಡಿ ಓದಿದ್ದೀವಿ in the principles and processes of biotechnology. So molecular diagnosis using PCR, polymerase chain reaction. So presence of a pathogen is normally suspected only based on symptoms. So by the time the symptoms are there, the concentration of pathogen would be very high in the body. So however, very low concentration of a bacteria or virus can be detected by amplification of their nucleic acid. So the bacterial nucleic acid or viral DNA and viral nucleic acid, they are amplified by PCR, that is polymerase chain reaction. So very low concentration of bacteria or virus can be detected by amplification of their nucleic acid by polymerase chain reaction. So the polymerase chain reaction, uses of polymerase chain reaction are, so it can be used to detect HIV in suspected AIDS patient. At a very early stage, you can identify the human immunodeficiency virus in suspected acquired immunodeficiency syndrome patient. So HIV positive or negative ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನ very early stage they can detect using this PCR. Okay, so to detect mutation in gene in cancer patients, ಯಾವುದೇ ರೀತಿಯಾದಂಥ ಜೀನ್ ಬದಲಾವಣೆ ಆಗಿದ್ರೆ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ಸರ್ ಪೇಷಂಟ್ಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಅದನ್ನು ಐಡೆಂಟಿಫೈ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು. ಪಿ ಸಿ ಆರ್ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡಿ we can detect mutations in genes in cancer patients. So PCR can be used to identify many genetic disorders. So many other genetic disorders can be identified by this polymerase chain reaction, wherein they are going to amplify the nucleic acid so that we can easily identify the genetic disorders. Okay, so the uses of PCR are, it is used to detect HIV, human immunodeficiency virus, in suspected acquired immunodeficiency syndrome patients at a very early stage. They can also be used, PCR can also be used to detect mutations in genes in case of cancer patients. So PCR can also be used to identify many genetic disorders. Okay, a single stranded DNA or RNA, what they do is they are tagged with a radioactive molecule, probe. Probe ಅಲ್ಲಿ the nucleotide sequences, the base sequences, we know what it is. Okay, it is a radioactive molecule. So a single stranded DNA or RNA is tagged with a radioactive molecule probe, is hybridized to its complementary DNA in a clone of cells. So this is followed by detection using autoradiography. The clone having mutated gene will not appear on the photographic film because the probe will not have a complementarity with the mutated gene. That is how you can find how a mutated gene is present, because their complementarity will not be there in the probe DNA. So the clone having mutated gene will not appear on the photographic film. That itself is an indication that they have a mutated gene. Okay, so that is how you can identify mutations in genes. So a single stranded DNA or RNA is tagged with a radioactive molecule. So we call the single stranded DNA or RNA with radioactive molecule as probe. Probe ಅಂದ್ರೆ detect, investigate ಅನ್ನೋದು. So ಅದನ್ನ probe ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ. Single stranded DNA or RNA with a radioactive molecule is called as probe. So it is hybridized to its complementary DNA in a clone of cells. This is followed by detection using autoradiography. So autoradiography, they can capture the radiations from the probe. Okay, the clone having mutated gene will not appear on the photographic film. Reason is they don't have a complementarity. Probe will not have a complementarity for the mutated gene. That is how you identify that the gene has undergone mutation. Then the third method of molecular diagnosis is ELISA. So they ask for 1 mark ಅಥವಾ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ ನೀಟಲ್ಲಿ ಕೇಳ್ತಾರೆ expand ELISA. So enzyme linked immunosorbent assay. ELISA is enzyme linked immunosorbent assay. So ELISA is based on the principle of antigen antibody interaction. So it is based on the principle of antigen antibody interaction. So infection by the pathogen, they can be detected by the presence of antigens. So when the pathogens they are going to infect, so we can detect them by the presence of antigens. Okay, so the proteins, glycoproteins, etc., or by detecting the antibodies synthesized against the pathogen, you can identify the infection. So infection by pathogen can be detected by the presence of antigens, that is the foreign bodies, the pathogens which have proteins, glycoproteins, or we can detect the antibodies synthesized within the body against the pathogen. So using this, we can identify the uh, disease or pathogen. Okay, so this transgenic animals we'll be discussing in the next class. Okay, so that is what we will be having it. So the transgenic animal will be discussing it in the next class. As of now, do you have any doubts or clarification? So in tomorrow's test, I'll be utilizing this part of it wherein we will be